There will come a moment in your journey when the energy fades, when your enthusiasm dries up, when the applause is gone and no one is watching. It is in this moment, when most men retreat, that the truly successful rise, because success is not a result of inspiration. It is the outcome of relentless continuation. You do not need more motivation. You need command over yourself. You must force yourself to keep going. The path to greatness is not paved with convenience. It is carved by those who continue long after the initial excitement has died. The man who wins in life is not the one who starts with fire, but the one who keeps walking when the fire is gone. When the road becomes dull, when progress seems invisible, when every part of you wants to stop, that is the test. And how you respond is the measure of your future. Inspiration is a spark. It ignites excitement, floods the mind with vision, and makes the impossible seem achievable. But like a spark, it fades quickly. It cannot be trusted to sustain a journey that requires years of work, thousands of steps, and the endurance to press forward when no light is visible. Inspiration will leave you when the weather is poor, when the crowd disappears, and when your effort is not instantly rewarded. That is why persistence must become your foundation, because while inspiration lifts you for a moment, persistence carries you for a lifetime. A man may feel inspired at the beginning of a venture. He may make plans, write goals, speak with energy, and promise the world to himself. But it is not his inspiration that will build anything of lasting value. The measure of his success is revealed in what he does when he no longer feels inspired. Will he show up when he is tired? Will he stay consistent when no one claps? Will he keep his word to himself when the reward is nowhere in sight? That is the difference between the average man and the exceptional one. One depends on how he feels. The other depends on what he decides. The man who learns to persist becomes dangerous. He becomes a force the world cannot stop because his behavior is not tied to circumstance. It is tied to commitment. When others sleep, he works. When others quit, he sharpens his craft. When others wait for motivation, he produces it through motion. He understands a truth the masses never grasp. You do not rise to greatness on waves of emotion, but by digging trenches of discipline. You build through the grind. You win in the repetition. You conquer by showing up when quitting would be easy. There is no glory in giving effort only when it is convenient. Success belongs to the man who fights through boredom, overcomes fatigue, and stays loyal to the process. You must decide that no matter how uninspired you feel, you will act, you will rise, you will execute. Because the actions you take in the absence of motivation are the actions that transform you. They harden your character, they multiply your strength. They teach you that greatness is never the result of passion alone. It is the product of persistence. You do not need to feel like it. You do not need to wait for a sign. You simply need to make the next right move, and then another, and then another. One day, the momentum will catch up. The results will appear. The vision will come to life, but only if you persist. Only if you become the man who does not rely on emotional highs to do what must be done. Make no mistake, persistence is the edge. It is the great separator, and it is always available to the man who chooses it, regardless of how he feels. Feelings are fickle. They rise and fall with the weather, with your sleep, with the opinion of others. They are influenced by distractions, by fears, by fleeting comforts. And if you live your life at the mercy of feelings, you will never build anything permanent, powerful, or worthy. Feelings are not facts. They are not orders. They are not to be obeyed. The man who surrenders to his feelings becomes a servant to his weakness. But the man who submits to discipline becomes a master of his destiny. Discipline is law. It is not a suggestion, not a preference, not a mood. It is the internal code written by those who intend to rule themselves. When you live by discipline, you no longer ask yourself whether you feel like doing the work. You do the work because it is who you are. You honor your plan because you said you would. You train your mind to submit to your mission. Discipline removes negotiation from the equation. It silences the debate between what is easy and what is right. It is a decision made once and executed daily, without excuse and without emotional interference. The great error of the modern man is that he waits until he feels like doing something before he acts. He waits for motivation to move, for energy to rise, for inspiration to strike. But greatness is not built in such soft soil. If you only act when you feel good, you will never achieve anything beyond the average, because most of the work required to win in life is done when you don't feel like doing it. The world belongs to those who act anyway, to those who rise without applause, who move without permission, who execute without emotional permission. Discipline says, I do it whether I feel like it or not. Discipline says, I am the same man in private as I am in public. Discipline says, I set the terms. I don't wait for the world to make it easy. And with each disciplined act, you carve a new identity, one that is solid, dependable, and powerful. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself because you are no longer living by the drift of emotion, but by the law of self-command. Feelings are quicksand. Discipline is bedrock. If you wish to go far, if you desire to be consistent, if you intend to achieve greatness, then you must stop asking your feelings for permission. You must treat them as noise. You must treat your plan as law. And once you commit to this path, the confusion fades. The emotional chaos settles. You no longer need motivation. You have something better, control. And with control, you become the kind of man who gets things done, rain or shine, tired or not, excited or indifferent. Discipline is the tool. Discipline is the edge. Discipline is the weapon that separates those who dream from those who do. Momentum is not something you wait for. It is not a gift. It is not found. It is forged. Momentum is created, crafted, and earned by a man who chooses to move forward, even when he cannot see the finish line. The mistake that keeps most people stuck is the belief that they must first feel inspired, confident, or ready before they begin. But the truth is this: forward motion creates the very momentum they are waiting for. Action is the spark. Movement is the ignition. Nothing changes until you move. A man paralyzed by perfection or fear will never gain speed. He waits for the perfect conditions, the perfect mood, the perfect time, and in doing so, he remains still. But the man who understands the law of momentum knows that even imperfect, uncertain steps will generate progress. He does not hesitate. He moves. He acts. He decides. And that decision to move, especially when it's uncomfortable, is what begins to shift the weight of his life forward. When you take a step, you give the mind direction. You tell your body who is in charge. You build energy, not from external inspiration, but from the sheer force of self-will. The more you move, the more confidence you build. The more confidence you build, the easier it becomes to keep going. That is the law. Momentum comes after motion, not before it. So you must train yourself to act without needing momentum in the beginning, because movement is the cause, momentum is the effect. There will be days when everything in you says wait. Days when the voice of hesitation sounds louder than the voice of purpose. These are the days that matter most. These are the days when taking one simple action, one push-up, one phone call, one sentence written, can shatter the barrier and start the wheel turning again. Action is the antidote to stagnation. Progress is built on movement. You cannot think your way into momentum. You must act your way into it. What begins as a small step becomes a habit. That habit builds identity. That identity produces consistency. And with consistency, momentum becomes your ally. You begin to feel like a man on a mission, not because circumstances changed, but because you changed them. You made the first move, and the second, and the third, until your mind, your body, and your environment began to respond. Success does not arrive in a single strike. It shows up after you've gathered enough force, enough energy, and enough forward motion that the world itself begins to respond to your direction. You are never stuck if you are moving. You are never defeated if you take the next step. The man who understands this truth becomes unstoppable. He does not need to see the end to begin. He does not need applause to progress. He needs only the decision to move, and with that decision, he generates the momentum that carries him through resistance, past obstacles, and into the life most men only talk about but never touch. The greatest victories are not won in the marketplace, on the stage, or under the spotlight. They are won in the quiet chambers of the mind, where a man either rises to command himself or falls to obey his weakness. Self-command is not a luxury. It is the foundation upon which all success is built. No man can lead others. No man can conquer obstacles. No man can maintain the discipline required for greatness until he first gains control over himself. It is not talent, luck, or intelligence that separates the successful from the forgotten. It is self-mastery. It is the ability to give yourself an order and follow through, regardless of how you feel, regardless of who is watching, and regardless of the cost. A man without self-command is like a ship without a captain. He is tossed by emotion, distracted by every passing desire, and ruled by circumstances he should have mastered. But the man who possesses self-command does not sway in the wind. He charts his course and follows it with precision. He becomes the ruler of his appetite, the governor of his thoughts, and the master of his habits. He does not hope to feel ready. He prepares. He does not wait for inspiration. He works. He does not ask life to be easier. He becomes stronger. Self-command means getting up when your body begs for rest. It means staying the course when your mind offers excuses. It means denying the impulse to quit and choosing the path of discipline, even when no one will ever know. You must train yourself to respond to vision, not emotion, to act on principles, not on preference. That is the price of power. That is the cost of excellence. True strength is revealed not in your ability to dominate others, but in your ability to dominate yourself, to think deliberately, to speak with intention, to delay gratification, to stay calm under pressure, to do what needs to be done, even when comfort tempts you with an easier way. Every time you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, you strengthen your will. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, you sharpen your edge. You become a man the world cannot manipulate, cannot distract, cannot defeat. Why? Because you are no longer reactive. You are no longer a prisoner of impulse. You lead yourself, and that leadership becomes the force that others respect and follow. Your results in life will always mirror your level of self-command. If your habits are weak, your outcomes will be weak. If your standards are low, your achievements will be small. But when you raise the standard, when you demand more from yourself than the world ever could, you unlock a power that few ever taste. This is the beginning of true freedom, the root of achievement, and the pillar upon which legacies are built. You must decide that your word to yourself is law, that your actions will obey your decisions, that your life will be led from within, not from the outside. This is how greatness begins. This is how empires are forged. The man who refuses to quit is the man who becomes a force that the world cannot stop. He may be delayed, but he is never defeated. He may stumble, but he does not stay down. He may face rejection, resistance, and hardship, but he persists, not because it is easy, but because he has decided that quitting is not an option. This decision, this absolute refusal to bow to adversity, is what separates the average from the exceptional. It is not brilliance that builds empires. It is not talent that writes history. It is resolve. It is the relentless, almost unreasonable determination to keep going when every voice says stop.